Okay, here we go. Man, why not kick that off? All right, bear with us, folks. We're just going to kick off the stream on Instagram. Let's go. Once that activates. All right. Welcome to Unmuzzled Chat. My goodness, we are off to a rough start today, folks. I apologize. We did miss our timestamp by just a little bit. So thank you for your patience. It seems as though the devil, who we're waging war against here today, doesn't want this episode to happen. However, these resilient men, we found a workaround. So it's as if they're here through my phone using the second microphone. So if you could give us a thumbs up when they introduce themselves on a sound check that you could hear them clearly, we would appreciate that. So I actually ended up on a phone call with both of these fine men last night, and it really touched my heart. And it was they just impressed the heck out of me. And their testimonies, their hearts, their courage is beyond admirable. I'm extremely grateful for men like this, not just in my life, but what they're standing for, what they're standing against. And it's to all of our benefits. And I hope we can grasp just that to give men like this the proper support they need facing the tyranny they are. So at the end of the day, I hope this fuels you, clears a path, and gears you up for what's ahead. You know, this other point just hits home. But they're here to share things even bigger than themselves and what's happening in this existence around us. And this is not just some physical war. This is spiritual warfare. So enough from me. I want to welcome SCHUYLER and Lucas to the Unmuzzled Chat podcast. How you fellas doing today?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah. Exciting.
Lucas, I got to give you a little plug and some praise for all hard work. I mean, tell us a little about you're connected to some military chats. So what is that exactly that's going on? But it seems to be a great organization, a bunch of men unifying, speaking, I mean, just supporting one another and more so facing this tyranny we're all faced with.
Yeah. So I'm a part of two chats. One is the 231. So most of them are the original signatories on the ability. Another chat I'm a part of is a Catholic military chat. Okay. And basically, I posted in that chat if anyone would want to reach out and talk to me. And so SCHUYLER reached out immediately thereafter to try to connect with me. And so, we talked on the phone for about a couple hours and went into some very deep religious and revelations and also spirituality of what he went through was very similar to what I'm going through. He's still in active duty as a Marine officer. He told me he was 12 years prior enlisted and he changed over to the officer. And he was able to essentially make a precedent at the Marine Corps to stop the COVID vaccine from being implemented even further. So he was able to do that when they gave him a 2-day notice to basically kick him out of the military. So he was able to set that precedent, and his testimony today is one that from God, essentially.
Yes.
And that he is able to speak upon events and visions that he was able to foresee and actually experience in real time, looking back on it, that everything was meant to be and the way it is, and that everyone does have purpose in this life.
Yes.
So here he is, and his story, I see a lot of similarities between him and what he's doing in God's work, and also other soldiers that got kicked out too, frankly. We all share very similar stories.
Right.
And so I found that very neat and very important that the words that he was using were almost exactly the same words that I was using. So it's a pleasure for him to be here and to still be in service and still fight for his accommodation. So he got his religious accommodation for the COVID vaccine, but he's also trying to get other vaccines as well. And so if he can set a precedent, that would actually change history.
I love that, Lucas. It's like the COVID tyranny supposedly is over. However, the infringement upon individuals' religious exemptions is still under threat. It is incredible. It is so crucial that we face what we just went through to ensure that type level of tyranny or beyond doesn't continue to exist or be magnified here in the future. And golly, you just hit the nail on the head, because SCHUYLER's, when he spoke, literally, it gave me goosebumps. It was nothing shy of goosebumps how God is showing up and performing miracles in each one of our lives. Is in a human state, it can be hard to hone in and acknowledge that. But boy, if we could capture some of that, SCHUYLER, on this episode, I'm sure that would touch some of the hearts and lead to proper momentum. So let's turn the floor a bit over to SCHUYLER. You can start where you feel like starting. Yeah,
absolutely. Also, there are a lot of people, obviously, that have been involved in this fight. Like, I certainly don't want to take any more credit than I deserve. Honestly, I was just a willing vessel. And everybody has their own story.
Yes.
To go back with what Lucas said, so in this fight, we were shooting for a precedent, right? But unfortunately, it got undermined a little bit by them rescinding the mandate. I really believe the only reason they did that was because they were losing in the courts. Ultimately, that would have been the ultimate precedent setting if they would have let it go to trial. Unfortunately, that didn't occur. But as far as my role in all this, again, being a willing vessel, God did all the work. I just happened to be in a position where I was being moved along the conveyor belt to separation faster than anybody else. I guess where to start? I guess maybe I want to start. I want to go back before this was even a thing, a little bit. I told you guys about these little events that occurred. I guess it would have been about a year and a half before the mandate even occurred. Kind of right around the heat of COVID, or the height. At that point, I commissioned in August of 2019. And then from there, ended up in TBS. So I was in TBS, which is the basic school in Quantico, when COVID really started ramping up. And so, we had moved into a townhouse in Stafford. So just right there, close to TBS. And I had this plaque that I got from a previous unit. It was a really nice plaque. I had it wrapped really well. I was proud of my accomplishments at my first command. And it was kind of a token of that, right? Like, anytime you have a going away, it's customary to give a plaque to an individual that has pulled their weight. Long story short, I unwrapped this thing, and it was basically like a huge wooden plaque with a blood stripe going down it with the EGA on it, huge EGA. And then the banner out of the Eagle's Mouth says Semper Fidelis broke off. So I was really upset about that. I was like, oh man, I don't know how this happened. Like, I was really careful with that stuff, along with other things that, we were moving. So yeah, that was like one piece that'll be relevant later in the story. Then it was soon after that, like, I found this cross across the horizontal bar. It said God, and then going vertically, it said loves you. And at the time, I was coming off of really just years of straying away from God. And like, honestly, my faith wasn't strong. But I got to the point where I was yearning to be closer with God, because, I've done pretty decent in my military career, have some good accomplishments, but I always got that destination sickness. So, I'd be like, I'll be happy when this, happy when that. Missioned, it was a great accomplishment. But even that, it just, ultimately there was a little bit of emptiness to it. Like, yeah, it was cool. But I was just like, there's got to be something more. I'm just not, you're not going to fill the God-sized hole with anything else. So around that same time, I prayed. You could say it was a dangerous prayer, but I was just like, God, ultimately I want to be used. I'm a willing vessel. It really was it was that short. It was just like, hey, I'm a willing vessel, use me. I don't know what for, but I know my purpose isn't so much more than the Marine Corps. And my big identity is in Christ. The Marine Corps, I had to put it back in its place on my list of priorities as like, this is my small identity, not the larger identity. And then, so there was that. Then I also had this dream. I don't dream often, but this one really stuck in my mind. It was a little bit terrifying. But I was running through this dungeon maze. I couldn't find my way out, and I ultimately ended up in solitary confinement. And then, and just in the darkness. And, that stuck with me for a long time. And I'm like, that's like, sometimes we want to be like, well, did that mean anything? Or try to make sense of that. But also later on in the story. And there's one last piece that I think God used to really set me up to know that my purpose for the period of time from August 20 of 21 to stand up against the COVID mandate, and just for my religious belief, and just also the illegality of it all, not even being approved. Like, I just saw so many red flags throughout this entire push upon the American people, really the entire world. So the one last piece around COVID time, when we were in lockdown at the height of the pandemic, and we were all like, I don't know if you remember, like, there was just a handful of different crazy Netflix hits, like, out of this mess. People were just kind of stuck on Netflix, right? So I ended up finding this docuseries. It's technical, kind of nerdy, but it was called Inner Evolution. And there was this guy that was talking about ultimately that our genetic expression does not derive from our DNA, but it's actually the messenger RNA, and our interfacing with our environment is what pushes genetic expression. So I really soaked that up. I'm like, I didn't have anything better to do, right? We were just, hanging out. But that was what I needed to hear, I think, to immediately recognize when they were pushing these messenger RNA vaccines, or they call them vaccines, but I believe they're more of a genetic therapy drug, right?
Right.
So I immediately I had a reference point to immediately go back to that and like, I don't think this is going to be great. I don't think they're portraying it properly and what it really is.
Right.
So yeah, from there, I moved out over here to Camp Pendleton, and we really want to get it into a church at the time because I hadn't really been attending church for a period of years, and I actually end up finding this church over here, and they're really big on what they call life groups, which you could call it like, mini house churches, right? You're sitting around with people doing everyday ordinary life, and just sharing burdens with each other. And I think that was huge for me because there was actually, so this was 8 months before I would even start dealing with all this COVID mess. There was actually an older gentleman in there that was being litigated against. And I got to see how he handled being litigated against and being in a court case, just for it was just a bad accident kind of a thing. But the immense pressure that has on an individual going through litigation is crazy. But he said one thing that really struck a chord with me. He said, I don't know how this is going to turn out, but if for whatever reason, it goes south and I don't know, I end up in prison or something. He was talking to his attorney. He said, I end up in prison, maybe God wants me there for a reason. And that kind of faith just blew me away. I was just like, wow, under this immense pressure of, and it happened to be like an accident where somebody walked out in front of him as he was going. It was just a freak accident kind of a thing. But yeah, just how he handled that. And he ministered to his attorney pretty much the entire time. So it's just these interactions we have with people. We don't realize the ripple effect that it can have. Like him going through all that into what I had to deal with was huge because it was just there were just so many little things that had to happen to line up to be in a group like that where somebody was actually going through a situation like that. So yeah, moving forward, we all know August of 2021 is when the mandate was pushed for the military. And yeah, it was the best way I've heard it explained it. It was really like the Salem witch trials.
Right. Yeah.
Totally ostracized if you questioned it. Which was pretty wild to me because prior to that, I think maybe 40% of my unit volunteered to get it, and the other 60% they were waiting to the last minute on it. So we were sitting there. It's like, well, I don't want to do it. And then they give us this process, right? They're like, well, you can request a religious accommodation if you don't want to get it, right? And at that point, I've been praying about it, and I'm just because I knew it was coming, and I had already made a decision, this is not for me. God does not want this for me. He's shown me that this is not going to be good previously. So yeah, I made the stance in September 21. Just I'm going to submit a religious accommodation. And I think we all kind of saw how that process went out. It was crazy how fast they were processing these accommodations, and
seconds.
I'd say it took a month and a half for people to start networking. Maybe even 2 months. It's hard to remember. But we all realized that, okay, they're literally rubber stamping all these with the same type of verbiage.
Blank sheet denials.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we felt originally very isolated And then, I think the first set of friends I made, and they're still like some of the best friends I have today, were through all this. And it's like my wife was looking around in a Facebook group. It's like, is there anybody else that's dealing with this? Because we honestly felt like the only people.
Wow.
And it was masterfully evil.
Yeah.
How well they were able to propagandize all of this, and it really make you feel like you're the only person.
Right.
Everyone else is stepping in line and doing their part and all this. And so after following that accommodation, it quickly moved into like, okay, we're taking your billet away. Everything you've done up until this point is important. So for me, that was, 12 years total service, and just all of that was totally forgotten for making this stand.
Isn't that insane? Like, I just want to take a second, because you're putting it great now. You put it great last night in our conversation. I know these type of episodes can make it hard to even like walk through and really just be yourself and such. But man, let's just break that ice. Like, frick pride, frick ego, just really, really hone in. And you said some very profound things. I like how you touched on a humbling of yourself. Why is it evil's effectively attacked God in such a way he's pulled us out like of the bigger picture in this existence and got us more so worshiping ourselves in a huge sense? And God, the more we can humble ourselves, it is to our benefit. And as I see your story, and I know where it's going, I don't want to do any spoilers here, but when you did that, when you had that humbling, and it didn't take this elaborate prayer, it took in the proper intent, and that is profound. And it was to your benefit, because now he gave you so many things. He gave you, in a sense, clarity and visions. He gave you strength not to state that any of this, not to undermine any of the tyranny you gentlemen, in fact, were faced with. It is unfathomable. Like, I can't effectively put myself in your guys' shoes. It is egregiously criminal what in fact took place. And it infringed more than just our, religious rights, but everything. So I just want people to kind of grasp that there is a loving creator that's there to give us the strength, the clarity, the path forward to our benefit. It doesn't mean it's going to be an easy path. And you may find yourself like these men, kind of ostracized due to a system. It behooves me that evil so effectively corrupted the ranks, the whole military infrastructure, right? And just got so much compliance on a experimental, to say the least, like an experimental freaking shot. And obviously they tried manipulating the masses as though it was an FDA approval, and that is far from the actual truth. So anyway, I just wanted to preface some of that, because my goodness, like, he's there to champion us. He's there to give us the strength. And if we don't seize the opportunities he's given us right now, I can see it, that it's going to lead to more suffering in this existence. And I'd like to avoid that. I'd like for more folks to tap into their gifts from God, and they naturally are going to be led to become more of the solutions, just like you, Schuyler, just like you, Lucas. So, all right, I hope I didn't derail you too much from your situation. So the COVID tyranny is now ramping up around you, but you've been given the discernment, and you've now, and the information to see things more so clearly. And as you're even questioning things, I imagine in that atmosphere, you're the black sheep. You're being like, I can't imagine those pressures. So go ahead, continue.
Yeah, so that was essentially all ramping up. So the first was like negative counselings, and then losing my billet.
With a perfect track record, all of a sudden, just because you're questioning something. Unbelievable. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, they removed from the billet that I had and then into operations section. However, the tasks they were giving me at that point were not commensurate of my grade. They were asking me to do like very basic things that the junior enlisted would have done. And yeah, it was degrading, the way I was treated. And in that prior to that, so as I was losing my billet position, I had an attorney working the ground game and like rebutting all the negative paperwork already. And so it was a pro bono attorney that was helping me do that. And that's another thing. Another point I want to make before I go into this too is when God calls you to something, it seems sometimes he calls us to something of this magnitude. But we've got to realize too, it takes a certain amount of faith to step into a calling, but God's not going to call you to anything that he will not provide for along the way.
Great point.
If it's what he needs you to do, you've got to have the faith that ultimately he's going to provide a way. And so that was my experience. So I had the pro bono attorney working on rebutting my commands, negative paperwork against me. And then also I heard a lot of people talk about Liberty Counsel, and I was just like, I'll take all the help I can get.
Yeah. So
at that point, I was relieved from my position January 5th of 2022. And then the next day, I hit them up and I was like, hey, I don't know if there's anything more you guys can do. It seems like pretty futile, right? Because they were just, the speed at which they were denying these things. And then, I appealed, also got denied, and that's when the adversity started coming in. But I gave them a call and I was like, hey, I don't know if there's anything you guys can do for me. But yeah, this is the situation I'm in. And then they were like, hey, yeah, we got you. A lot of people were, obviously going through the same thing. Just send us your paperwork. So I did that. And then I want to say, I can't remember if it's the same day or the next day, but they hit me back out and they're like, hey, we looked at what your current situation is. And they're like, you're farther ahead than everybody we have on this case so far.
Wow.
Like you're a real candidate for being a plaintiff. And so I was just like, oh, wow, that's a pretty big thing. Let me pray on it. Make sure this is, what God wants me to do.
Yeah.
So I prayed on it. I was like, God, you're just going to have to, again, give me clarity on moving forward with this. So I happened to be at church the next Sunday. We're going through a series on David, and the passage we read was on David and Goliath. I've heard that story, 1,000 times. But some of the pastors said really resonated with where I was at. He had said that David knew God could take down Goliath, but he still had to pick up the stone and throw it. And that was like the green light for me. I'm like, okay, because it's literally a David and Goliath story. It's, this lowly first lieutenant, and really like, I believe there's around 15 other Marines, throwing rocks at a giant. That's where we're at. I don't think in the beginning anyone ever anticipated that.
Could you imagine being David in that biblical story? Unbelievable. Some of the burliest, war scar-ridden individuals, weren't standing up to this giant. And little David had so much faith. And look at the outcome. We are not to anything is possible through Christ. Anything is possible through our loving creator. And we need the proper distinctions. Jesus talked about the evil one, called him the prince of this world, the God of this world. So that God of this world is properly, I feel, pulling the wool over many Christians' eyes as though they're worshiping our loving creator. But it's not. There was nothing about this biowarfare that was from our loving creator, right? It's imposing. There's demonic things to it all, and it's imposing on God's free will right out the gate, infringing on our God-given rights, civil rights, constitutional rights. So I just want to commend you, SCHUYLER, for the meekness and seeking his will for you and just fully submitting as a vessel. And undoubtedly, and I know once again where the story goes, this had grave positive impact. And to this day, now I want the listeners to understand, you are still active military in the Marine Corps. So there's a level to this. He is showing up with extreme courage to shine the light in the mortal threats, but it's more so even the spiritual threats. But there's ongoing legalities, if you will. So there's, obviously I challenge all my listeners to be unmuzzled, but there's a strategic way of going about this. So there's obviously some things that will be withholding due to the ongoing legal actions. But that being said, my goodness, just continue, because we're leading into how he actually used you to the benefit of everyone. And it's not just the Marine Corps. This impacts us all as citizens of this country. And it's a very inspiring situation and story if we all gained similar meekness and faith and really tapped into God's gifts for us. It would be incredible what we could accomplish here. Does it mean we're going to right the ship? That's up to God. But we could save souls along the way, undoubtedly, and limit the needless suffering, which naturally is going to bring people into the light in fulfilling their roles while they're here. So continue, SCHUYLER. This is very inspirational. I'm so grateful for your time.
Yeah, of course. Let's see, where were we at? Okay, so yeah, I made the decision to ultimately go on as a plaintiff. And the judge throughout the case, there were several plaintiffs that were facing the loss of their billets. And the judge would put a stop to individuals having adverse punishment leveraged against them. But we're all rooting for class action and a preliminary injunction for quite some time, and it just didn't seem like it was coming. I believe there were other. I want to say it was a serious case with the Air Force. They had an injunction. I believe at that point the Navy SEAL case had also had a preliminary injunction. So as far as my recollection, we were kind of the last ones to get relief. But so, yeah, joined in January, things were happening in the background. Like I signed a report of misconduct where they proceeded to slander me because I didn't do this. Conduct unbecoming an officer, substandard performance, like all these, phrases they used against me.
Gosh.
Basically, I lack the capacity to be a leader. Just, in my opinion, just ridiculous accusations. But
yeah, you're fulfilling the definition in my book as a leader. The weaponization of words and psychological warfare was so profound in these positions. It's unfathomable.
Yeah, so that was the report of misconduct came with an acknowledgement of the administrative separation. So the process was well underway to them getting rid of me. So that happened around March timeframe, and for officers in the Marine Corps specifically, a final determination has to be made by the Secretary of the Navy. So essentially, I had to go through several echelons of command up to headquarters of Marine Corps, and then go on to the Department of Navy and the SecNav, basically making the decision to separate. So still took a little bit, but and in the meantime, like I'd started going back to school because I'm like, well, I really need to think about the future if this doesn't pan out the way I would like it to. I started going to seminary, and master's program I was on is mental health counseling. So naturally, we were going through things like psychology and whatnot. And this kind of goes back to the very beginning of this conversation. We were going through the evolution of psychology, Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, like all these people that we say foundationally made psychology what it is today. I agree with everything they believe? Absolutely not. But we did talk about various topics, and one of them was dream analysis. And they would, obviously, they've had all these studies that would analyze patterns of people's lives and then dreams they might be having and try to make meaning out of it. So naturally, I was a little bit curious. Not a huge proponent of that belief, but going back to the dream I had in the beginning of running around in a dungeon, feeling like I couldn't find my way out, ended up in solitary confinement. It's like, let's look around and see what people have said about this. Not right now.
Flush the window.
Yeah, not right now. Sorry. The nose. Get locked the door. Okay, so going back to that dream, right? I was just curious. I'm like, what could this possibly mean? Dug into it a little bit, and some of the results were pretty crazy. Particularly with that, people that had those kind of dreams typically were in a bad work environment, like they felt trapped by an institution, didn't feel like they had any kind of control, and they were trying to strategically navigate complex issues within an institution is where that kind of pointed to. And as I was reading that, it's just like that. Just all of a sudden, the banner falling off, the plaque, and the cross event. I didn't know where I totally forgot about that. It just immediately snapped back in my head of wow, the Marine Corps is not being faithful to you and to the Constitution,
Wow.
religious freedom. God has been with you the whole time throughout this process.
Wow.
And immediately during that time, I was in a lot of turmoil. It was, God was leading me to do these things, testing my faith, refining me as a person, as a Christian. But it still didn't come without struggle. It was terrible, just all the way around. It was suffering and ostracization and all these things. But right there, I'm like, He's with you. He's got your back. That was one of the big moments to where it was like a reassurance. God used symbols for me, and it's like God's, he's mysterious. He can talk to us in various ways. We just have to be attuned and looking out, I think, for things,
Yes.
and understanding their importance. So I continued to go pursue the program, and I believe it was It was in July. So it was the last week of July. I was finishing up summer coursework. And one of the classes I was taking at the time was systematic theology. And I looked around. I was like, oh, what do I want to do it on? And I made the decision to do it on God's providence. And specifically, I went to the story of Joseph. I went through his entire life of how, you know, he was initially thrown into the pit by his brothers to make his way to Egypt, to be a servant, to be thrown in jail, and like go through all these different things, to see famine throughout the land and to see his brothers coming to Egypt to try to get food so they wouldn't starve. And I ended it on Genesis 50:20, which essentially said that, you know, you all meant evil for me, and getting, you know, ultimately throwing them in the pit and being rid of them because they were ultimately jealous, but God meant it for good. And it was like a week later, like I get a 2-day separation letter. And at the time I was living on base, and I was just totally blindsided by it. What happened, and what really wasn't, it shouldn't have been a 2-day separation letter. The Secretary of the Navy had signed my separation letter on July 12th. Then my executive officer at the time had texted me and the other lieutenant, because I did have a friend that was also like, hey, I'm not doing this. He had told us like, hey, you guys need to come up to talk to me in my office. That's around mid-July. Like, oh, here it goes. But then he's like, actually, no, hold on. I don't need you right now. And then to call us in on August the 3rd, 2 days before our new EAS dates, August 5th. And so, I mean, yeah, they claim they told us they just got them, but I truly believe they purposely withheld it to be strategic because I was on this case. Otherwise, they wouldn't have initially tried to ask us to come up there. So I was on base with a wife, 2 kids, you know, dog, and we had the house like halfway packed up. But to check out, like just doing all the checkout things, you know, that was going to take up the entire time. So we're freaking out. I'm just like, it's just absolutely terrible. Ended up sending all the paperwork to the attorney. I was just, okay, I don't know if you can move on this that fast, but like I'm like having we were just in total distress about it.
Right.
But the attorneys got the paperwork. Then they looked at it. They're like, holy smokes, they were trying to get rid of you in 2 days and just kick you out of here.
Wow.
And he's like, so they ended up filing it with the court. The next day, the judge put a temporary restraining order on me to hold me in place. And they're like, he's like, we're going to have a hearing on this. I want to hear his testimony of what's going on. You're not going to separate him yet. So they ended up scheduling that hearing. It was, 6 days later. And my buddy he was so tired of like dealing with this stuff. He's just like, dude, I want to get out. He's like, so he made a decision earlier on not to fight it. And, he's very happy where he's at right now. And, he was right there with me standing up, and we're great friends to this day. But I'm like, hey man, going back to the day they gave us a 2-day letter, our executive officer was walking us around everywhere together, like we were, children and didn't know how to go to IPAC and medical and all these things to get checked out. But I think that was just divine because he was able to corroborate everything that happened. Mm-hmm. He was an eyewitness. And just the ridiculousness of that was even like divine in and of itself. Because I'm like, hey, you want to come testify with me? And he's just like, yeah, absolutely. So
Wow.
we went in front of a judge and gave our stories of how we were mistreated and given a 2-day separation letter. And just generally how we were not really a threat to health and readiness like they had been claiming. Just kind of explained the importance of our billets, and can't remember if we went into like how much it cost to train Marines and all different things of like you're presenting a risk to the mission by separating this many people. Honestly, if we really look down to it, it's like how many people in our demographic are really affected by COVID by like you just throwing all this money away and training Marines and all these things to have to replace that's kind of a cost. So there's just a lot of, cost versus benefit analysis, and the defense attorney threw up a lot of general data points that didn't really mean anything about the health of it, because they honestly couldn't justify what they were doing.
Yeah, you brought truth to light. You brought the receipts. You spoke the reality of the situation. So was it reciprocated to a degree in these? It was in courts, yeah?
Yeah, well, I mean, so the judge he found a lot of holes in the defense's, argument, and he started poking around at it. And ultimately he's like, okay, I think I've heard enough for today. I'm going to come back with an order. Just stand by. So 9 days after the hearing, he came back and he made it a class action and then issued a preliminary injunction for the entire Marine Corps.
Let's go.
Yeah. And so that essentially crushed the mandate for getting ready for a trial.
That's so huge. We can't, that is so huge. I mean, folks need to grasp. I mean, it is horrific that it even went to the degree it did. But then again, we were this close for it just being full tyrannical vaccine passport, no choice. They were literally building out camps in this country. Camps. I mean, I even question history at this point and what really took place in the Second World War and things of that nature. But it was like we were being marked. They literally, yeah. And it was ludicrous because they had their war tactics so effectively built out with their war machine, aka the control of information. And not enough people at this time we were so close. And to this day, we are so close to them, like full tyranny, full tyrannical. The one thing that's really keeping us, I mean, is our Second Amendment in this country, and how many Americans, and that they want to take that away under the illusion as though, oh, that's going to actually be to our benefit. It's unfathomable, but what a freaking blessing. I am so grateful, Schuyler, you as a man humbled yourself, sought that meekness, and received literally divine blessing in your life that led you on this path to blessing so many of God's children. It is such a prime example for us all to essentially pick up the sword and fight. Let me do a quick screen share here. I just pulled this up, but oh my gosh, right here in Luke 22:36, Jesus instructs his disciples to sell your cloak and buy a sword. It's like a call to spiritual preparation and engagement in the battle against evil. Now, this last statement, yes, it is spiritual warfare at the root of it, but it is literally becoming literal combat at this point. actual tactics, actual things being played out? Is it old weaponry? Are they using swords and knives? Are they using guns and missiles? No, it's biological warfare. It's information warfare. It's psychological warfare. It's spiritual warfare. And we must see it for what it is so we effectively can rule it out and ensure our freedoms, ensure we are able to fulfill the very purpose for why we're here. After all, it's just a bleep in time. There's no better reference for us in this existence other than this amazing roadmap right here. Maybe I'll even just touch on like this quick scripture right here. Obedience. Obeying is better than saying I'm sorry. 1 Samuel 15:22. If we actually jump over here, you brought up what the witch trials, which was pretty crazy because like this right here really spoke to me profoundly earlier this morning. And it states, what is more pleasing to the Lord, your burnt offerings and sacrifices, or your obedience to his voice? Listen, obedience is better than sacrifice. Now, I get this is the Old Testament, right? But when you look at it through the lens of the New Testament with Jesus and paving a way for us all to actually obtain forgiveness from our loving Creator that couldn't have been really achieved any other way, it does bring light to what we're facing right here, right now, and the reality of it, in the spiritual aspects to it all. And it states, and submission is better than offering the fat of rams. So what you just led by example right here, SCHUYLER, that submission, that humbling, that meekness had led to him working through to such a profound extent to countless, minus you and I'm sure some of other, inspired by God individuals that really stood their ground. That tyranny, we were so close. It would have bled over and just engulfed this nation. So it continues, and this is what's crazy. Rebellion is as sinful as witchcraft. Rebellion. So think on it. If you're not even seeking his will, are you rebelling against God's will for you, his words? It's right here, folks. And it's not to our detriment, it's to our benefit. Look at the deterioration around us. Look at the infringement on all our rights. Look at everything that's happening. Do not be manipulated and gaslit. Evil has become very effective masquerading as our loving Creator. You can see the damage being done. Let's not be fools and seek his will. Rebellion is as sinful as witchcraft. Think on that. That's profound. That's alarming to me. I don't ever want to rebel to our loving God. And stubbornness is as bad as worshiping idols. False idols, folks. Stubbornness. Americans are extremely, what should we say, narcissistic, self-serving, selfish, stubborn, and it's to our own detriment. And I'm speaking so profoundly because I myself in this life have been guilty of these things 100%. But the truth, his light, his love to this day has set me free. And it is the greatest blessing I never even deserved. But just in a sense, it didn't take a single setting for me to submit to him like your intention was so pure. It became, I'm more stubborn than most of them. So it took more hard knocks. It took more life experience. It took longer being lost in the wilderness, if you will. But, oh my gosh, false idols. So because you have rejected the command of the Lord, he has rejected you as king. Now, once again, that's the Old Testament. We basically, I mean, however you want to word it or envision it, but through Jesus Christ, there's a way. It's like when we wash ourselves through the sacrifice and the blood of Jesus, God sees his son through us. He doesn't see our sin. We are entirely forgiven. I pray we seek that, but it's a humbling. Has the evil one in this existence tainted your being to the degree you don't feel the profound truths being laid out before you? I know it's an individual walk here, but there is a sense of urgency. Not only are our lives very short in this existence, there does seem to be potential shortening that every day from here on out that is gifted is just that, a gift. And there's no assurity with tomorrow and the next day. We really need to humble ourselves and live in the moment. And I challenge everyone to do just that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent there, but it just was weighing on me. And I just feel like what to whatever degree, I come from all sorts of different angles on this platform, whether it's from love, whether it's from harsh love, trying to smack some truth into folks, or just sound the alarms, because it's so crucial. Our lives are at stake. Our spiritual well-being is at stake, and it's not just us, right? And that's where I love to champion what you men are doing, because there is a difference between a man and a woman. And there are some very powerful women soldiers out there and warriors out there. But for men to not acknowledge the war tactics effectively preying on women and children in this existence, I don't know, mortally it boils my blood. And I want to see more men fulfill their duty, their responsibility as warriors for God, as citizens of this country, and gain things back, push back the evil, corruption all around us. We are an occupied country. And in my eyes right now, the devil is sitting on that throne. Are we going to literally sit back and allow him just to continue reigning over us in our lives? That is exactly what's happening. All right. I yield the microphone back to you folks. Lucas, you got anything you feel like chiming in real quick?
Yeah, I mean, I would just like to commend SCHUYLER. So, he's fighting the fight, put on the armor of God.
Yes.
God uses symbolism, and he has a purpose in your life. And, you might see them as coincidences, but everyone has meaning. And so, what SCHUYLER did was he defied all odds. He set a precedent. He rescinded the mandate. He potentially saved, thousands of other Marines for not taking that COVID shot. So, highly commendable.
Yes.
Really a motivating story. It truly is. It's something that, I wish I could have had the opportunity to do. So, he's there, fighting the fight, and, God all has meaning in everyone's life. Anyone that you run into or experience, there's a reason why that person's in your life. And so it's important to understand that.
Well, I also commend you, Lucas, because you are in tune. You were in the right place at the right time. You've humbled yourself and you made these connections. And I pray why do I keep saying only? There's a lot of onlys. I pray that this reaches even bigger platforms and gains more momentum for the both of you, for the message itself, right? To seize the opportunities we have right here in this moment. So you, my friend, have played a big role right here in supporting and magnifying what SCHUYLER has stood for. You gentlemen If only I could articulate, or we could articulate in such a way that just touches the hearts of the masses, or just we need just enough, a high enough percentage that we currently have not achieved to ramp up the pressures in all the proper ways to ensure our bidding, our God's bidding is completed. Because as it stands, evil is gaining more pressure and more momentum and more support than God's children are supplying in this existence. That is the only reason for the level of tyranny, the warfare, the division in wealth in this existence. And things are getting ramped up pretty direly. So, all right, let's continue, Schuyler. I'm anxious to hear more of your testimony, your the outcomes and everything that kind of have led up to today.
Yeah, well, so I was thinking about what you're saying too, and I just want to say this, kind of put this in perspective. I truly believe what God is doing right now. Obviously, COVID and everything surrounding COVID has been terrible. But I mean, kind of going back to your point of like, especially in the Western world and in America, I think we've been so blessed that prior to,
yes,
I'd say these hard times, we have definitely we were brought to a point of just self-indulgence and living out the American dream, and all the trappings and materialistic type of things that come with that. And I truly believe this was God sending us a wake-up call
yes,
to where our priorities need to be.
Priorities.
And I just want to, like, if there's anybody out there struggling, I just want to offer some words of encouragement. To embrace your desert season, embrace your wilderness season. It's really hard to do,
yes,
but I just think of, what Moses had to go through, right? God had to take the Egypt out of Moses, and he took him out to the desert to prepare for what God had called him to do, which was set the Israelites free from the greatest empire at the time, right?
Wow.
And, we all have different types of callings, but we've got to draw near when times are bad. And I think too many times in previous years prior to all of this, when my faith was really refined, I would be a fair weather Christian of like, things are going good, praise God, all these things. And when things would start going south, I'd be like, God, what's going on? And I think a lot of us have had Christianity backwards for a long time. And it's not easy calling to even be a Christian, right? God calls us to pick up a cross, die ourselves, and suffer with him. So just being a Christian, you're going to have times in your life where you're going to have just immense struggle and suffering, but God is always faithful. And this story for me just met all that criteria, right? And then he uses the faithfulness, and then all the days of suffering culminate into something beautiful, which is, what happened. And ultimately, it wasn't anything I did. I was just willing.
Yeah.
And then it was just the right timing. God used me. He's like, yeah, he's going to stand in this spot that I told him to do what I asked him to tell him to. And I'm going to use it for good. I didn't really, in my opinion, the stepping out was a tough choice. And also, I think this was a test of character for really all of us, right?
Yes.
Because I mean, you can claim to have good character, but your character really doesn't show until it's been tested, the validity of that.
Yes.
And that's kind of what we saw across the board with everybody. But again, like I appreciate, people are like, yeah, what you did was great, but really there were a lot of people that were doing the same type of stuff. God just used me in the right time, in the right moment, because I was willing to step out on it. But ultimately, like even after that, it was some relief. But the story doesn't end there. I definitely still had hard times. So like moving forward, we were moving toward trial, and depositions preceded the preliminary injunction. I had mine in October, and it was really probably one of the strongest attacks like levied against me. I think just like in the physical realm and spiritual realm. So I talked to my attorneys. We did a little prep work, produced documents, all that for the deposition. He's like, I anticipated it being 4 hours tops. Well, I went to that deposition, and it was 8 hours long. It was all day of the defense trying to mischaracterize like everything I'd said, everything I had written in my accommodations. It was the most taxing, like aside from like family members passing away, it's probably one of the worst days of my life. It was brutal. I stayed strong throughout the term. My Liberty Counsel attorneys did a great job with cleaning a few things up where they had tried to mischaracterize what I said. But yeah, that day, honestly, I kind of looked up to God and like, man, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can keep doing this. It's getting like absolutely brutal. It's just like crushing my soul, it feels like. And so, that was a Thursday. I remember because I paid to go to a men's conference at my church the next day, and God always delivers. When I went to the men's conference, there was actually a preacher had come in. He just so happened to be from Mississippi, like not too far away from where I grew up. But he came out and started talking about his experiences through COVID too. Everybody was so politically divided in his church. He had said he had told, and he came from like 4 generations of preachers, and he was giving us his testimony of him wanting to quit, throwing the towel. He's like, I just can't do it. These people are just so difficult. The church is like tearing itself in half. And he was telling his grandpa about like everything he was dealing with, and his grandpa's like, now you can't quit. This work is too important. You've got to keep pressing on, no matter what. You just got to pick up your cross and carry it. And then he proceeds to go into telling the story of Daniel in the lion's den and the immense pressure that Daniel faced against King Nebuchadnezzar and not adhering to dictates, right? And ultimately, he ended up in the den with the lions. And he just talked about the immense pressure that he was going through himself. But he made the point of pressure in our lives. It's kind of similar to what pressure does to an oyster, right? The immense pressure against an oyster is what ultimately forms a pearl. So pressure is a great analogy because all this pressure in my life was refining who I was, was building character, was growing me deeper in the faith, all these things. It was just another reassurance, like at one of my lowest points that, I'm still with you. Like you you got to keep carrying on.
Yeah.
Like I have you here for a reason, still in the military. Even though you've had this great victory, the work's not done. You got to stick in the fight and continue to go at it.
Gosh.
Then it was that, and then as I was going to these counseling courses, one of our professors, he's like, look, if you're in this profession, you've got to take some self-care, where you've got to go. He recommended seeing counselors for yourself. And honestly, being in the Marine Corps for a decade, it's not really, we're just, private, tough guys that, hey, I don't need any help. I'm good. I'll suppress what I feel and just, live with it, right? But, that was kind of the nudge. My wife had told me, it's like, maybe you should go talk to somebody. It'd be good to get all this out. And then he was kind of the tipping point of like, yeah, maybe you should go. And I'm like, okay, well, I got two people telling me this. I should probably just go talk to somebody. I ended up getting a Christian counselor. She was a really nice lady, and she recently got trained up in EMDR, which I'd never heard of prior to that. And it's honestly, when she explained it to me, I just kind of looked at her like she was a crazy person.
Right.
Yeah. Essentially, it's like you're working through a trauma and an eye movement. So she used her fingers, and it's like you're just following a finger with your eyes, and it simulates the same thing that happens in REM sleep. You're processing, these thoughts while you're sleeping, and they get ultimately, it's like saved as memories, right? So it's kind of how you, it's like all the mental file folders you have up there are ultimately processed. So I was like, okay, I'm here, I'll try it. So I want to say like 3 weeks in, we kind of talked through like the struggle I was having in the military, particularly with this mandate. She's like, all right, well, yeah, let's reprocess that traumatic experience. And so we started to go through it. And she does it for an increment about 30 seconds. And then she asked me what I'm seeing. And essentially throughout this one session, I was thinking back to everything I experienced in the mandate. And I saw myself in my battalion headquarters, and I had a megaphone, and I was, sitting there saying, like, screaming at the top of my lungs, like, hey, this is legal. What you're doing is wrong. You guys aren't adhering RFRA and all these things, right? Or there's no approved vaccine. And it was like I was invisible. Like, I could literally see people just that I worked with walking past me. And I just got nothing out of them. And I ran into my buddy who was also in the same boat. I was like, hey man, I'm trying to tell him like all this crap's illegal. Like nobody's listening. And he was sitting, in his office, got no sad demeanor. He's just like, yeah, man, they're not going to listen. It's pointless what you're doing. And then I remember where the room I worked in where they had fired or essentially moved me to after they relieved me on my previous billet. And it essentially felt like a cell. And the only time anybody would talk to me was when they needed me to sign negative paperwork. It was like I was being summoned. And that was really the only time anybody paid me any attention. So it really draws back to just feeling isolated and being treated like a black sheep. And from there, I was like teleported to this valley. And it got more symbolic from there. So like I was on top of the mountain looking at myself, like I was in the third person, just staring down at like me ascending this hill. I was completely burnt, charred, on one side, I was, dirty, clothes were ripped. And I was just exhausted. I was ascending this mountain. And I got close to the top, and I found an oasis to clean myself up because I could see myself getting to the point like I wasn't going to go any farther. And then I hit this oasis.
What is that? I don't know what that. It sounds like robots are fighting or something. They don't want your vision and this story to get out, apparently.
Yeah, somebody walking by with a blower. So I was ascending this mountain, and I hit this oasis, and I knew it was for refreshing, that the battle wasn't over, but God was going to give me some reprieve. And I knew that was God, like, encouraged me and pointing me back to the case. And it's just like, I've got you. And then from there, like, I went ahead and then completely ascended that hill. I came to the other side of it. It was like, it flattened out, green pastures as far as you could see. There was a spring-fed river running through the property. And I laid down to rest. And I was just like at complete peace. Then as I got up, I saw the friends that I'd gone through this with that I grew really close to, and my family and their families. And they were all super excited to see me. Like, we hugged for a second, everything. But I got fixated on like, hey, where's everybody else at? And they're like, you don't have to worry about them anymore. They're gone.
Wow.
And I left that session, and I was just like, God, what was that? Like, I don't know. This stuff's kind of weird. Was that like from you, or what was it? And I didn't really ever think that I would really get an answer to that question, but it was literally 30 minutes later. I went straight from that session to back to the home, and for our life groups we do homework, and I open up the app and I'm like, let me do my homework for tomorrow night so I can answer all these questions and we can discuss the next day. And the first scripture that popped up in the homework was Psalm 23. And I'm going to go in here and read it because I think it's just so powerful. Because that was really the first thing that I did after that counseling session. I know we're all familiar with it, but I'd like to read the entire thing.
Absolutely.
So it says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies. Sorry.
Wow, this is bro, this is beautiful. He is touching your heart in front of us, and that is touching mine. That is true leadership. That's a true man right there. Let it out, man.
Yeah. As you prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies, you anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Wow.
So that's the first thing that I was encountered with as I left that session. And it's been really cool to grow even deeper in that passage. We recently hit on that again in church, and I love the context of it all because shepherds would have understood this passage very well.
Yeah.
And what they would have to do when the summer would hit, the valley would get really hot, the grass would dry up. Shepherds would have to take the flock up to higher ground, get to the green grass. And it was dangerous in the valley because the predators were there looking to pick off the sheep. It's just such a strong message of, obviously, Jesus is our shepherd, and he walks with us through the danger of the predators, the treachery of the terrain of our lives, to get us where we need to be.
Yes.
And so that was just like, God reminded me again to continue to carry me through, just even still being in, still going through that, and just his promise to bring me to higher ground, to bring me peace, through the midst of just such a difficult time in my life. And that was just a huge pivotal moment for me, and just getting that deeper, just meaning out of that scripture, and then just the comfort that comes with it. It was really powerful.
Yeah.
And I immediately knew that it was that came directly from God, and it wasn't just some fluke coincidence and me having this visualization of everything I had gone through, but God really was speaking to me in that moment, through that.
Bro, that is powerful. I mean, even in today, so this notepad, but whatever you want to call it, that I use, it's cool because it does have little biblical references that I more often don't even, I kind of look over, I don't know why, to my own detriment. Sometimes I'll notice it after an episode or something, but this one profoundly jumped out at me before our episode today. And it states, God is working through you, giving you the desire to obey him and the power to do what pleases him. Power. So that's all the things. That's peace, clarity, happiness. I mean, meaning and purpose, right? You really nailed it earlier. Mortally, my priorities were all out of whack. It was only through seeking the relation with him, my priorities, with minimal effort of my own, got completely rearranged in this existence. Relationships dropped from basically being the top on the list down to where it actually should be. It was relationship with him. Anyway, it became such a great blessing. But I got a question, because you tapped into, I don't know, it seemed churches were even influenced in one way or another regarding this whole pandemic. And I believe a lot of them are actually leading people astray. So why do you fellas suppose some of these huge churches are silent on these matters? Do you think that maybe the government has threatened some of them, or their families, or their 501c3 statuses? Because it's very clear biblically what we're to do in this life.
There's clear lines in the Constitution where it says separation of church and state, And obviously that's not the case. The state or the government influences the church. So if they tell them to lock down, most of them will comply. But yeah, that verse from Psalm 23 that you mentioned is such a powerful verse from the Bible. As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. And in the Bible, I fear no evil. Do not be afraid is mentioned 365 times in the Bible. So for every single day, you should fear no evil, right? Because God's got your back. So having that verse, impact your life, and as sad as it sounds, kind of goes back to what you said, James. I mean, as you walk through the valley of the shadow of death alone, most of these journeys, right? You have to, at some point, stand up and actually walk through death. And that's very hard for people to do. Most people won't even want to enter that valley. They would gladly just be blind and not have to go through an experience like that.
More so probably due to our priorities mortally being completely out of whack. You know what? We don't even need to play the sound on it. But this isn't even an example from humanity. This is the insect world right here. But we can really let this spark something within us. Look at this hornet, 10 times the size of this honeybee. 1 versus 1, the honeybee is no match. And what does it do? It snatches one up, just starts devouring it quickly. But the power of God's children, the power, why are we idly sitting by and allowing our women to be preyed upon, our children to be preyed upon, our military? They've infiltrated us on so many levels. And I know it seems overwhelming, but this is the reality that we could be faced with tomorrow if we effectively unified and supported one another. So I'm so grateful for these men standing up on behalf, even when it was 1 versus 1. And you achieved God's armor, SCHUYLER, Lucas, and you've made it through to this day. It is incredibly sad to see people walking in fear in this existence with the priorities out of whack. Mine were, I get it, but it could shift. And this picture we had a chuckle about on the phone. This is more so what I feel God has directed me in this moment in time, that we must see things clearly. This is a table flipping moment. We aren't to allow this level of tyranny going on, even in our churches. We need to support the ones and pastors that are actually more so challenging these narratives. Because if they're not, what's next? Tyranny never ends. So, okay, cool. The church caves and they allow, and half their congregation gets this. What's it? It inevitably is going to lead to their shutdown. The fact they're not taking that stance now, if they actually had love for you in your life and to fulfill God's will, they would speak up on these damning threats to us all.
Yeah. I just have to say, on the positive note,
yes.
Basically what's going on, it's called the bystander effect. And so when no one stands up, tyranny is able to get away with unlimited consequences. So the fact that one person can stand up, like SCHUYLER did, can change the course of history.
Yes.
It only takes one person to do that.
I love that. Help us build the proper momentum, folks. In this digital age, how do we essentially achieve these outcomes we desire? It's just like that Bumblebee situation. We unify. So in this digital age, with a lot of the heavy lifting being done by men like this, it's through shares, it's through likes, it's through, because that builds momentum. Like evil will see, like they could see. They had to stop the tyranny of the scamdemic because not enough compliance was happening and there was enough pushback. So they pushed the envelope as far as they could, as long as they could, with the momentum they gained, till truth started actually getting exposed. But we haven't assembled effective enough to actually take out the freaking threat. So more things are coming. It's responsibility we all have, and it is a great opportunity. What a blessing to be right here, right now. Has it ever been clearer than this? We could tap into a lot of the symbolism. Evil on his throne is literally blatantly putting out there. I don't want us to cave to it any longer. So there is great momentum to be had. Sharing, reaching out to unmuzzledchat@gmail.com. Come tell your story. Come give us advice. Help us connect with bigger platforms. There's so many things. We need like your visions, your gifts, and the connections you could help bring to the table. So, gosh dang, do you guys have any burning desires? Because I mean, I do want to apologize. We have had some sound issues. It sounds like bless that landscaper, but you know, he kind of he wanted to be heard, I guess. I don't know what challenge opportunity that provided us here today, but I look forward. I welcome you gentlemen back any time. So as we listen to this back, if it seemed a little cut up or something, we could reschedule. We could hit this. So I want to apologize to the listeners and to my guests that, you know, they're just, and it was more than just that. I guess I failed help setting up proper sound for this episode, but we'll see. Time will tell. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity because it will pose more learning curves, and we should learn more from our failures than our successes, right? Like that's pretty humbling. So yeah, what burn desires do you guys have? What solutions could you help speak on to just ignite and solidify the momentum we can gain together?
Well, for me, I can't remember exactly who I heard this from, but it really struck a chord in me and humbled me through hearing it. So we'll go back to, I believe it's 2 Chronicles 7:14. It says, if my people will humble themselves and repent of their wicked ways, then I will heal the land. It's really easy to point the fingers to everyone else who don't know Christ, but when we really think about those are the sons of the enemy. They are not going to right their ways. But I think we as Christians need to turn and look in the mirror.
Yes.
Our own lives and right the ship in our own lives before we right the ship anywhere else, or attempt to, right? So, because people outside of the Christian faith are honestly victims of the enemy. Yes, so we have those individuals, even the leaders at the top who would shift to tyrannical behavior, right? They are sons of the enemy, and the enemy, it's a spirit that's guiding them to do what they're doing. And then so I just kind of go back to, you know, we're the remnant that has to be in charge of righting the ship. We need to look at our own lives, do our best to allow Christ to mold us and sanctify us. And we need to, and I know there are a million problems in the world to solve, right? But I think as Christians, God strategically places us where we're at, and we should be aware and cognizant of our surroundings and what needs to happen where we're at. If we're looking for a fight that we are not able to influence in any way, when we're just like totally overlooking what's right in front of us, whether it's just you have somebody you're a friend with, they're not a Christian, and God's calling you to talk to them. Like really, that's, if we look at the book of Acts, right? You know, miraculous things happen from just people getting house churches together, right? It wasn't, you know, you have people in the Bible that did monumentous things, but I think we need to like look at ourselves and look what we can do within our sphere of influence.
Yes.
And I think if you start there, if we're all doing those types of things, you don't know how God's going to use just the small steps of obedience, like in our own lives, and just the influence it'll have with those around us. It makes me think of a story of Billy Graham. Billy Graham, you know, was an atheist, right, at one point, and I believe the story is he was just had some revival or just checking something out, and one person spoke to him, and you know, he became a Christian. So you never know, like, wow. There's so many ripple effects to what you're doing in your sphere of influence that, you know, we talk about like God's kingdom being a kingdom of multiplication. Like, there are things that we're going to do in this life that we'll have no clue what effect it made. And one day I think God will reveal that to us of like, hey, your one little action right here produced all this fruit. So we can't just shirk off the opportunities we have to do the small things just to pursue the big things. And I think overall, this is one topic that we're, you know, feel very strongly about, and I think we're in the right position to move hearts and minds over on the issue. And God put us here strategically to do that. But I think just in the everyday actions and the people that we run into, like we can't look over that. We can't overlook that either. And just look for those opportunities. And I'm not perfect, you know, out of like selfishness or whatever. Like, I might not be doing the things I should be doing, but I try to like go back and right the ship. I feel like that's the starting place, is constantly looking back to God for sanctification and molding. Just so we've got to take advantage of those opportunities too, because that's when he might be molding you for a huge calling later that you have. It's not even on your radar. This was 100% not on my radar. And the molding that, you know, came of that is just, it's wild. Like,
no,
that makes sense.
It absolutely does. I love what you just brought up, because it's something we all need to be cognizant and aware and take that extra time. Like, we got to understand and humble ourselves in the sense of like, this civilization, city living we're in is more so new, and we're accustomed to just robots walking by, not interacting with one another. Smiles go a long way, you know, just introductions go a long way. And you know, there's individuals that I've seen certain political, you know, merch and stuff that they're wearing, and I just felt impressed to walk by and state, Jesus loves you, you know, and it kind of stops them in their tracks, and I don't know, some will smile. It is interesting though too. so many individuals are like, they're almost repelled to the whole idea of God. And it just shows the disconnect because we're visitors here, folks. And I was lost in this existence before, and I'm so blessed to have humbled myself. I mean, it was a very rough road for me. Literally took knocks to my head with how stubborn I was to actually humble myself and face that person in the mirror and ask if I value this existence, which led to a humbling and realizing there is a grander plan for us all. And it is all to our benefit. And then we actually fulfill the purpose as to why we're here. It is bigger. There is nothing in this existence that is worth keeping that door closed to our loving creator. That is far more important than anything around us. So frankly put, I can't speak out enough on our loving creator God. I just can't. I'm on fire for him. And I owe everything to him. And I'm so grateful. Go for it, Lucas. What do you got to share with us in closing?
Yep. Luke 23:34, as Jesus is on the cross and he's being nailed.
Wow.
A quote, "Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do." So if a lot of people were just following orders to put Jesus up on that cross, and same thing as today, people were just following the orders. And
ooh, that's a good point.
You have to forgive them if they were ignorant or deceived, and they didn't know what they were doing at the time, and maybe they still don't know. But when there does come a time where you have to, like Schuyler said, come out and realize what you did wasn't justified. No.
Truly, when it comes to adults and they're having negative impact on adults, yes, forgiveness. But it is clear. Better a millstone tied around your neck and dropped into the depths of the sea than harm one of these little ones. So when it starts imposing its evil and tripping up the littles and in a mass number, I believe we're better off to fulfill what God stated there and take out those evildoers to stop causing harm to our littles. It is not inciting violence to stop actual committers of violence. We are to pick up the sword, folks. I am so personally grateful for interactions like this. I don't know how it is impacting you. Let me know. Let me know how I could refine. Am I too repetitive? Am I too harsh? Am I not harsh enough? Let me know. This is a communal effort, and together we will be more impactful. We'll gain more momentum. Let's build up a giant snowball that just wipes evil off of this freaking planet. But I am excited. And with testimonies like this, Schuyler, Lucas, it gives me strength. It gives me more excitement to accept my role in this existence. So I'm so grateful for your examples. There's this book right here. It's got little prayers. We are in the last page of Real Manhood. The title is Caring for My Life. And then it's got a scripture reference. Show me, O Lord, my life's end and the number of my days. Let me know how fleeting is my life. Could you imagine if we actually could really grasp just that, and we were gifted that? It would almost be a gift and a curse because we're mortal. And if we don't constantly meditate on that each and every day, we're going to start mortally tripping up and showing all of our flaws, right? But if we truly grasp that, I believe we'll more so be walking in the fruit of the Spirit more so effectively each and every day. But it states, you have made my days a mere handbreadth The span of my years is as nothing before you. Each man's life is but a breath. Psalm 39, 4 through 5. Let that give us clarity and direction. The prayer reads, God, it is so amazing how I can rest in the truth that my life is just a breath in your eternal plan. But I do find peace in this understanding. It means my days are part of a whole picture. I am insignificant compared to your greatness, but I am significant because I am yours. My days count in the unfolding of mankind. My family history and my family's future are connected to your master plan. With each breath I take into my lungs, fill me with the desire to care for my life. I want to consider it precious and meaningful. Show me how to please you, Lord, with all that I have and with all that I am. I know if we could achieve this, we would achieve unfathomable things in this existence. I'm so grateful. I didn't deserve to feel his love for all of us, but wow, did that change things for me in the whole trajectory here in this existence. And I pray that you and he will answer, and that you seek that love. Gentlemen, thank you so much for showing up today. Hiccups and all, it's just, you just showed up. That is extremely encouraging. I hope that rubs off on some individuals. And let's listen to this back, and I'd love to have you back. We could get more topic specific and calls to action specific. But folks, above all, we thank you. We appreciate your support. I know together we can magnify all of our efforts that we're doing each and every day. Come share your stories. Come share your testimonies. Look forward to hearing from you. Check out our affiliations below. We might have, I know we're going to have some challenging days ahead. So I'm very grateful for the affiliation with EMP Shield, Patriot Mobile, things that can help us gain the resilience within our mortal state and eradicate a lot of these war tactics on our minds, bodies, through Bond Charge, the infrared sauna blanket, 15% off the masterpiece, Unchained Wellness Clinic, Pure Benefits Aesthetics and Wellness, food preparation such as American Reserves. Get yourself an Unmuzzled Chat t-shirt from none other than Black Eagle Apparel, or some Freedom merch, and embody it. Lead by example. It's fun to do so. So once again, gentlemen, thank you so much, Schuyler, Lucas, for your testimonies, for being the men, the godly men you are. I look forward to, I know there's more testimonial things for you guys to share. I felt it on that call last night. So I would love to have you back on. Appreciate your time here today.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, listeners, God bless you. God bless America. Until next time, take care.